Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're at, ladies and gents. I am Kura Isagami, and welcome back to another episode of Robattle Studies 101. Now, something I have started being asked in fairly recent is necessarily what kind of parts are worth raising, what goes into actually raising parts or limit breaking them, and which parts are actually considered good or not so great. Now, those are honestly a lot of questions that have a lot of varying answers depending on who is asking and what kind of team build that they're trying to accomplish with these questions. So instead of actually answering all the questions individually, since, like I said, those answers are very subjective and very difficult to have a single blanket answer for all of them, I instead am going to be going over just a basic breakdown and understanding of how to limit break parts and raise them to higher levels so that you can take this knowledge and apply it to however you want to build the teams that you have in mind that you want to accomplish. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into today's lesson of the Robattle Studies 101 crash course, limit breaking, making strong parts stronger. Now to kind of go into briefly what limit breaking does and how it works, simply put, if you played any other RPG or JRPG, you are very well versed with what a limit breaking or an ascension, depending on the game in question you're playing, behaves. All it does is simply raise the level limit of that particular character or skill or equipment, so that you can raise it to a higher level and achieve higher stats across the board. This also means higher stats as mentioned, damage skills or conditional bonuses if you're using it on legs or metaforce reliant parts will be much easier to obtain certain bonuses. And on most parts, such as say basic rifle, power rifle, or any kind of most kind of combat skills in general, will also unlock pierce damage upon capping it at 5-star, which is the highest that you can cap a part. But the part ranks will go from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest rank and the lowest stats possible, 5 of course being the highest rank and the highest stats possible, fully capping the part out. Level limits also basically go up in increments of 15, where 1-star parts will cap at level 30, 2 stars at 45, 3-star, which is the most common, rare part you may, if you will, to be gotten from gachas, will cap at level 60. Which is honestly a very good stopping point for parts that you're not sure if you want to raise, or if you want to hold on to, or just don't have materials to make use of at the moment. 4-star at level 75, and of course 5-star or R5 at level 90, of which you have fully capped the part out, and the only way to increase it any further is making use of power-up chips, or equipping certain meta routers to achieve certain bonuses to kind of bolster or offset particular stats you're wanting to raise, or complement, or even compensate for, depending on the situation. Now, when you decide on a part that you do want to limit break, the first question you have to ask yourself, and you may notice, is what exactly do I need, and how much of it do I need in order to limit break a part? Well, that honestly also varies based on the rank of the part in question. But at its very core, when you do find yourself on this screen ready to ascend a part to its next rank, there are ultimately 3 core materials that you need in order to limit break a part to a higher level. Those are ROMs, Cyplasium, and another item called an NFRP chip that come in 3 different varieties of bronze, silver, and gold, each having a different requirement for a higher rarity. Now, with this being said, of course, you will also have a credit limit that will need to be met so that you can actually pay for the limit breaking and get that taken care of. But ultimately, you will also ask yourself, how do I get these materials in question? Because it is a lot of materials to have to kind of farm and grind for, so I want to know exactly where to go and how to do it so I can kind of make the process as easy as possible. Well, to answer those questions, first let's start with ROMs and Cyplasium. These two are arguably some of the toughest materials to obtain because this is something they don't necessarily like to give out often. Primarily, you can only get ROMs and purple Cyplasium specifically, as it does come in a blue and purple variant. You can only get these two from pulling in gacha banners. So this is kind of one of your 2 incentives to having to pull for gacha banners, even if you don't feel necessarily led to pulling for someone that for a particular week, or if you decide that you want to save. Going for the ROMs and the Cyplasium kind of serves as your compensation prize, I guess you can call it, for if you get bad rolls, because you're still getting something out of it all the same that you can make use of, even if it isn't what you necessarily want from that particular gacha banner. As mentioned, it is arguably one of the toughest materials to obtain because they do not like to hand this out very often. So generally saving rubies for banners that you want to save for will kind of allow you to help kind of stockpile Cyplasium and ROMs on the side. But ROMs, arguably, of the two, is the easiest to obtain because you can hold on to these without really dipping into your stockpile all too heavily. In addition, they will also hand out ROMs and Cyplasium through events, which kind of makes stockpiling them just a little bit easier, albeit slightly. However, with Cyplasium, as mentioned, there is a blue variant that can be farmed for once daily. This Cyplasium, however, is used for farming and limit breaking parts that go from 1-star to 2-star, or even 2-star to 3-star. This basically will allow you to save your purple Cyplasium, which is the more precious of the materials in this case, for the higher end parts that you truly want to raise, so you don't blow it on parts that you decide later, oh, I don't really think I wanted this, but suddenly are out of materials and have to wait before you can attempt to raise it any further. The other material you'll need of these two are NFRP chips. As mentioned, these come in 3 variants of bronze, silver, and gold, each denoting a different rarity needed and a higher rarity needed to unlock to a higher power and a higher rank when you limit break parts to higher levels. These can be farmed daily and near constantly, actually, as all of the banners are honestly on a cycle system each day of the week. One day, of course, where all the banners are open, where you can farm for any as needed. So generally, out of all the materials, this one is probably the next and the most easiest material to obtain because you can farm it just about any time of day. And even if it's a type of chip that you feel like you don't need in that immediate instance, it is always good to farm it anyway, just to kind of make use of for the passive EXP and just to stockpile the materials so in the case that you do find yourself particularly low. They do also like to hand these out very freely, very freely, during events of any kind, so it's generally not too hard to get a hold of this material in comparison to ROMs or Cyplasium, especially Cyplasium, which is arguably the most difficult to obtain and the hardest to hold onto because it is such a precious material of the 3 listed. Now, with the materials in question, ultimately now the question is, how much do I need of each in order to limit break from one rank to another? If you're going from 1-star to 2, you will only need 25 ROMs of that particular part, since they are broken into head, arms, left and right arm, and then legs. You'll need 10 bronze NFRP chips of that particular variant. Those simply break down into head, arms, and legs to make it easier to understand. And then about 50k credits to finalize the transaction and limit break the part. Going from 2-star to 3-star, which is arguably going to be one of the more common ones that you'll see, requires 100 ROMs or 100 dupes if it's a fierce battle, 10 silver chips and 25 bronze chips of that respective NFRP chip required, and 100k credits. Going from 3-star to 4-star requires 500 ROMs, which is where things start to get just a little bit expensive. 10 gold chips, 25 silver, and 50 bronze, and then 500k credits. And then lastly, going from 4-star to 5-star to cap the part out and finish it up would be 1,000 ROMs, which is fully capping the part out all the way to the top. 25 gold chips, 50 silver, and 100 bronze. And lastly, you will also need 1 million credits. Now, you may also notice I did not include a Cyplasium requirement in this list, and that's because the Cyplasium requirement also varies relative to the base rank of the part. So naturally, if you have a 1-star part that you want to limit break and cap, you will actually have to, it will cost you approximately about 20 Cyplasium, 10 or 20 Cyplasium essentially, whether of the blue or purple variety, whereas say going from a base 2-star to a 3-star may require only 10 to 15 or so. But as a general frame of reference, if we're going to use an assumption of a base 3-star part, figure that you would need a total of 50 purple Cyplasium, 20 to go from 3-star to 4-star, and then the 30 to go from 4-star to 5-star to fully cap it out and be ready to go. But with all this aside, final closing thoughts on this, just to kind of wrap up this 101 and kind of give you the closing thoughts on it all. Use Cyplasium wisely. As mentioned, and it cannot be emphasized enough, Cyplasium is a very precious material, whether it be of the blue variety or especially the purple variety. So if you're going to make use of it and you're going to limit break parts, make sure that you fully commit to being willing to use that Cyplasium for it, and you have the material that you won't necessarily burn yourself dry raising that part and leave yourself with nothing left over. As mentioned, blue star Cyplasium or blue Blue Cyplasium can be farmed once daily in its own special dungeon in the events tab if you were to go look for it there. You can pull up to about 30 to 60 a day roughly, depending on if you have the Robattle pass or not, since it does give you the ×2 bonus, but it is still a good way to farm, so you can at the very minimum raise all your lower level and all your fierce battle parts to at least 3-star, so they're at a point where you can at least use them without it really hindering your overall team build. Lower base rank parts will get more expensive. Now, as mentioned on the previous slide, with Cyplasium having a higher requirement depending on the part rank, there are a lot of parts, however, that are very much so worth raising to higher levels. Some of these examples include, say, Baron Castle, who starts at a base 2-star. His head and left arm can be absolutely fantastic to use on any particular build needing a shield. So even though they will be a little more expensive to raise compared to, say, a base 3-star part like, say, Snow Fenrir, who starts at base 3-star, it will, the viability you will get out of raising lower base parts will essentially pay itself off in the long run when you do decide to make that investment. In early game and even late game for veterans, capping at level 60 is honestly perfect. If you are a rookie just starting out the game, you're not sure what you're doing or what parts to raise, never fear, that's what these Robattle 101s are for, just so you kind of have an idea on what's good, what's not so good, or at least have an idea on mechanics so you can make that decision for yourself. Stopping at 60 is honestly a pretty solid point, as it's I'd say it's a pretty decent mid-range, where the part can still be used relatively feasibly with or without pierce damage, and reaching any particular conditional bonuses really isn't all that hard to obtain. It may still require 1 or 2 turns to actually meet, but it's certainly better than having it at a lower level, where it is much more difficult to obtain, and you also are more fragile with a lower level part with lower stats. Take advantage of events as well. As mentioned, ROMs and Cyplasium, they do not like to hand out very easily, except through events, and even so, they do not like to hand it out very easily. You do have to very greatly work for it if you do want to hold on to that material to obtain. So again, if you are going to take advantage of a reward, farm it where possible, go as far as you can, so just so you can accrue it to hold on to, even if you don't plan to limit break anything right away. Farming it just for the sake of having the material is better than missing out and not having it at all when you really truly need it. Now, one other thing, you can never have enough NFRP chips. Because it is a very easily farmable material, this is something you can honestly do kind of on the side as an everyday grind if you find that there's nothing in particular you want to do that day. So do feel free just to kind of take advantage of that for passive bonuses towards your player EXP, towards a level up, and your passive friendship point bonus to use towards the FP gacha, which honestly you can use and make use of it pretty much any time because that banner never changes, but you can always use it to get a hold of extra booster chips, marauders, or even 1-star parts that may or may not have mixed viability depending on what kind of part you pull or how you choose to use it. But aside from all this, I believe that covers just about everything in this Crash Course 101 of limit breaking parts. And with that being said, I do want to officially dismiss class with this, and thank you so much for stopping by. If you'd like to know more, you can follow us below on Facebook at the Metarot News Network page or the Metabots Forever communities there. You can also join us on Discord at the link provided and in the comments below, just to kind of keep a closer ear to the action on anything related to Metarot or any particular updates or additions to the Robattle 101 channel or my standard weekly episodes and battle breakdowns of each individual bot. You can also reach out to me personally on Twitter at IsagamIKura if you have any questions or feedback or suggestions on other things I should cover, be it the individual breakdowns or suggestions to my regular weekly episodes, or even things I could even consider as breakdown videos for the Robattle Studies 101 playlist. But aside from all this, once again, thank you so much for stopping by. I do hope that this 101 did prove beneficial to you in some way, shape, or form with the better understanding of how to limit break parts, just so you can kind of rise to the top of your game and make the best of what you want to make use of for your team. So with that being said, this is Kura Isagami signing out.